transformation isn't about improvement, it's about rethinking. It's about taking it and changing a model to something else. And a lot of things are badged as transformation, and they're not.
Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning into the latest edition of Radical Transformation, the show where I have in-depth conversations with the people who are transforming business. I draw out their real-world stories and bring them to you here on this show. So kick back, put the kettle on, and enjoy the show. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Guy Butler, and Guy's a transformation program director based here in the UK. In a career spanning over 20 years, Guy's been fortunate enough to work with some really fantastic businesses, ranging from global tech firms like SAS and Sage through to telcos like O2 and Telefonica, charities like Guide Dogs for the Blind based here in the UK, through to the public sector and many more organisations. So, hello Guy, and welcome to the show.
Hi Mike, thank you.
Brilliant, great to have you on today. I also know we have something in common. We went to the same university, didn't we, to Hull, but same time, but we didn't really meet at that point. But I know we also have something not in common, and that is that you are a keen and accomplished baker, I understand. I know that because, of course, I follow you online. What was the last cake you baked, Guy, and why?
You're the follower. Thank you very much, Mike. The last cake was a Victoria Spanish cake. I made this over the recent bank holiday weekend. Something I really like making.
Cool. Why?
Well, it was my first recipe I ever made, and it was just something I just had to scratch an itch every so often to do some baking, but I don't eat it, and I gave it away to all the neighbours as well afterwards. But I needed to do some baking.
So you must be popular in your street.
Well, by some.
So are we going to? I guess that begs the question: are we going to see you on Bake Off soon?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Mid-lockdown, the very first year, I applied and saw the advert, and everyone was home based, right? And I thought, I'm going to go for this, and it's a funny story here, right? Just very quickly, I kind of applied for this and went into the website, and would you believe it's like 20 pages of the application process to go into Bake Off, and it took me about 6 weeks to fill in all the questions, because they were asking questions on breads and cakes and cookies and all this stuff as well. And I applied, and then the next day I got a phone call saying, we'd like to interview you for the Bake Off. And I thought, oh, this is great, and it was probably one of the worst interviews I've ever had, because it went into the kind of general chit chat of cakes and why do you do it, and then I said, I'm just going to ask you a few technical questions. And this is one of the producers of Bake Off. I said, yeah, great. And I said, fine. Can you name 4 types of meringue? And I thought I'd be lucky if I could name one. And I said, can you name 8 types of cake? And it was going on like this. Can you talk about the 6 stages of tempering chocolate and all this? And it was very quickly dawned on me that it's not right. So I've become I don't think you'll be seeing on me any time.
So you stuck to the day job, yeah?
I did.
Okay. I'll remember not to apply myself. So Guy, let's get down to business. We're here to talk about transformation. What does radical transformation mean to you?
That is such an interesting question, because they're two very interesting words, right? And when we were first chatting about this beforehand, it's not just transformation, but why the radical part in there as well. And I think I've been kind of pondering this question, Mike. And there's a few things I just want to kind of drop in here. And there's a great quote that is my North Star when it comes to transformation that I live by, and it's by Malcolm Gladwell. And he says, transformation isn't about improvement, it's about rethinking. Transformation isn't about improvement, it's about rethinking. It's about taking something and radically changing it. It's not about nibbling at the edges. It's not, and this is no criticism to the process improvement kind of lean school, but it's nothing about that. It's about taking it and changing a model to something else. And a lot of things are badged as transformation, and they're not. And I think when you're looking at something, when you're looking at a exam question in the business, whether it's about looking at growth, whether it's about, retention or whatever, sales or whatever. It's got to have that kind of element in there about rethinking something in there. There's a great interview, and I would urge everyone to go and look it up. And it's a few years old now, but it's the Levi's CEO, and he talks about Levi's jeans, and he never washes his jeans ever. He just uses a toothbrush to spot clean the jeans. He said, you never need to put a pair of Levi's through a washing machine. And I was reading this, oh my God. But that analogy is perfect for looking at changing and transforming a business, because sometimes you don't need to radically transform something. Sometimes a spot clean toothbrush cleaning is perfect. So for me, it's when you do need to put them in the washing machine, when you've got mud all over it, when there's holes or whatever like that as well, when you need to rethink, whether it's do or die. And that's what it's about. So that's it for me.
Got it. No, thanks, Guy. Great analogy. I love that. Okay. So tell the listener then about how you go about setting up a transformation program. You've done a few of these now. What's your advice and guidance to our listeners?
I've spearheaded 6 different sectors, different stages in an organization. Always situational, always. There is no one perfect model of transformation to say this will work here, but there are some common elements that I think are key for transformation. And let me just share a few of those with you. The first one is a target model. And this is a clear picture of the world today and the world tomorrow. And then how do we bridge that gap so that people know the journey that we're going to go on? And the target model should articulate that. There's no template. There is no one best way of doing it. And I've seen it done in different ways. I've seen it in Excel spreadsheets. I've seen it in PowerPoints. I've seen people put on plays, and to kind of like demonstrate it as well. And I think having a clear model that firstly articulates where the challenges are and how we're going to overcome them is key. That needs to be shared with people. And one of the challenges I see is often that is not shared, and it's kept in, within a small community of people. And if they are not kind of sharing this with people and with kind of stakeholders, you're in trouble. So I think having a target model is key. I think secondly, you need to really, really engage people. And when you're starting up a program, by talking to people, understanding what their challenges are, where there are issues, what's worked in the past, what hasn't worked in the past, that is, again, always situational for that business, is key as well. So they're the key things I think you need. And I've forgotten the rest.
That's okay. And when I think about target model and making sure that's understood and shared with the business, I guess vision, sharing that vision is pretty key, isn't it?
It is. And it's kind of like, I used the term North Star earlier. What's the North Star? What's the flag at the top of the mountain? And what is the vision that the business wants to get to, to that, as you make it up there as well. And if people don't have that, people don't understand why we're doing it and where we're going to get to, it's just a bunch of stuff. It's another program. It's another thing. It's another plate on people's desks that they need to address as well, really. So they need to understand that.
Let's talk about stakeholders. What advice would you give to the listener about getting, and more importantly, keeping stakeholders on board during that transformation program, especially when things get tough? What advice would you give?
It is so important to get the stakeholder management and engagement correct. Otherwise, you're toast. And as a program director, 90% of my time is spent on managing stakeholders, and whether that's working with them one-to-one or their teams and whatever that entails, it's making sure that they are being listened to and that their concerns are being addressed and that they're being helped. And very early in my career, I always remember, Mike, spending some time trying to land a stakeholder, getting their buy-in. And it was like something from a film where they're in a different office. I was using Lotus Notes, if you can remember back then, one of the old apps before Word. And we'd email every so often, and very busy guy. He ran a factory in this part of the business. And I went to his office, unannounced, and just sat outside his.
You doorstepped him.
I did.
Yeah.
Only because I needed to get his sign off, but I needed to understand, was he on the bus? And again, I was process improvement coordinator or whatever my job title, but I wanted to get, my gut feeling was, you've got to land this guy. And it was like, again, it's like something from a film, right? But it's honestly true. I was there 3-4 hours, people going in and out of the office, and then
waiting for your audience.
Yes. And then eventually his secretary said, you can go in now, and he'll give you 5 minutes. And then all these words tumbled out. And he was so nice. And he said, yes, Guy. What else can I like that as well? And he wasn't blocking, he just didn't have time. And that's always stayed with me, and why I'm going to come back to this. People are busy, stakeholders are busy, and you need to understand and put yourself in their shoes about what they want. And so what I do is break my stakeholder groups down into kind of gold, silver, and bronze. Uh-huh. And, the gold stakeholders are your sponsors, your top team, the people who are, responsible, if you like, for the outcome, for the transformation. They will give the investment. They'll give the assigned resources and so on like that. The silvers are often their direct reports and people who are working with them, and they're doing the heavy lifting in the project. And they're the ones I'm really spending most of my time on, making sure that they are, again, being listened to, their concerns are being helped, being raised, and that we're giving them, the support in the program as well. And the bronze team are people just wide across the business who just need to be engaged, be updated, and be, just told what's going on, if you like, in there as well. Stakeholders are a critical transformation, because if you don't have them on board, you're really in trouble. So, and it's, all the programs I've worked on, you've got to have them on board.
Guy, you've worked on a lot of global transformation programs with disparate teams, often based in different time zones, different cultures, different ways of working. What challenges has this presented? How have you overcome them? And what advice would you give to any of our listeners working on global transformation programs right now?
Do you know, Mike, working globally is one of the best parts of my role, because you get to experience different cultures, people, different time zones, different parts of the world, but all with very similar challenges. And some of the best moments of my career have happened either in kind of Zoom calls, in the kind of middle of the night with teams from Asia Pacific or the States or wherever. We're actually there face to face with people, and it kind of links in neatly with what we were chatting about earlier about stakeholders, that, people aren't robots. We are human beings, and stakeholders, people you work with on these programs, all got busy lives, all got things going on. This is just another layer of complexity where they are, that they're not regionally, close to home, to where you are, if you like, but working thousands of miles away, often, huge time zone differences as well. So there's the challenge. How do you engage hearts and minds with somebody who is not close to you? You can't go and grab a coffee with and a Pret around the corner, whatever, or jump on a quick call with. And where I can, where there is budget, where there's opportunities, I'll always look to go to Gemba. There's a great term about going to where the action is, this Japanese term. I don't know if it's Six Sigma or where I got this from, right? But
Toyota.
Is it Toyota? Great, thank you. So, but go to Gemba, go to where the action is. But often, it's not possible. You just can't do that all the time. And so I look for always respecting their time zone, wherever it is, and I will always try and accommodate that where possible. So to have, if I'm having one-to-one or kind of team calls with colleagues in those time zones, trying to do that. And if anybody's watching who have done that and are not, I apologize, but it's always the intention to do that. I think too, and this is where it gets another layer of complexity. It's a bit like an onion now, right? That where you have colleagues who are on programs globally, how do you do it where somebody isn't going to be waking up at 3 a.m. consistently as well? So to try and do that, respectfully, and try and understand the challenges there. There is this great tool called Google that you can find out time zone kind of differences as well. And there are all sorts of websites where you can plug in different times in there as well. So you can see the kind of the times that are coming in there as well. Outlook even lets you do it as well. You can put in parts in there as well. Why I'm saying this, in their shoes as a stakeholder, you got somebody saying, I need you to come on a 1 hour call. It could be at 7 o'clock PM, AM, whatever their time as well. You need to appreciate their time. And I think having to do that is key. I think the other thing to try and address some of this is to look and to learn, look for and seek problems that people have, to learn those and to try and help people quickly solve some of their problems. And if you can show that you're on people's sides, and this is perfect for face-to-face, whether you're close with somebody, regionally close, but it's the same principle thousands of miles away, they will hopefully, and this, has worked for me over the years, it garners respect. It garners, a relationship there as well. So people will come in there as well. And they're the kind of challenges I see. Where it gets great, as I said at the beginning, when you have face-to-face moments and when you can get to see and work with people, having built up a relationship virtually as well, it becomes so powerful because it's almost like you're seeing an old friend that you haven't seen in years as well. And I had so many of those kind of like airport moments where somebody's meeting me there, or, you come into a workshop and it's wonderful. It's joyous as well. So I think they're the challenges. It's understanding the time zone, appreciating that people have challenges, looking for their problems and trying to help them as much as possible.
Great answer, Guy. And I think, one thing that really struck me there is the ability to understand their problems and early on, what I call in cricket terms, get some runs on the board with them.
Yes.
If you can help them,
absolutely,
then you're more likely to get them to want to willfully and actively participate in that change and transformation. But getting some early wins, it's 101 transformation, isn't it? But getting some early wins on the board is so critical, particularly when somebody could be around the other side of the world and you've got no direct management or authority over them, as is the case most of the time, I'd imagine, in your line of work. But how do you get them on side? How do you take them with you on that journey? And if you can help them early on in whatever way, then I imagine you're gonna build those bonds, build that friendship, and build a stronger working relationship just that much quicker, aren't you?
Oh, you are. And I still keep in touch with people over the years that I've worked with, and we get, I get banter on, LinkedIn posts and things like that as well there. And it's brilliant. And it just shows that these are people who've gone beyond colleagues to friends years later as well. I'm going to steal that runs on the board. That's brilliant. And you should trademark that, Mike, because, they say get the quick wins in and all this as well, but runs on the board is a KPI, and that's something, as the cricket, is a perfect analogy for that. So thank you. I'll be using that one.
You're welcome, Guy. Let me unpick that a little bit more. So when you started out as a transformation professional, I think the workplace certainly was quite different. The norm was to go to the office, often 5 days a week. The norm was to travel, to go and meet with colleagues in different parts of the world. That all changed. All those norms went out the window, particularly when we went through lockdown globally, And I think only to an extent have we emerged out the other side. The culture has changed now. At the best, we're hybrid. I guess the question I'd like to ask here is how has that impacted your ability to step into people's shoes? Because before you could sit outside an office, talk to somebody. Now you may find it very, very hard to get any FaceTime with them. And often Zoom can be a poor substitute. It's not like being in front of that person. It's not quite the same. You can't read the body language as well. Has it become harder to run big global programs? Has it become harder to change the direction of a business post-COVID?
No, I don't think it has. I think let me break that down actually. There's two ways I'm going to answer this. In the communication approach, it's probably easier because there is greater opportunity for Zoom, Teams calls to be able to kind of jump on a call with somebody as well. And pre-COVID, I remember, I'd been in some companies and people would be nervous to put their cameras on. Just in this is pre 20th of March 2020. So I'm talking the videotape back, that as well. And then, I don't want to put my camera on, and all this, and that's fine, and I'm not, there's nothing bad with it. But then the world changed. And so people are more open to that. Where I think there is a challenge though, is not that. I think there is mounting evidence of change fatigue. And pretty much every week, Harvard Business Review has new research on, employee surveys that are coming out, and people are feeling overwhelmed, tired of change, of transformation. They are not giving as much. And, just look at some of the stats, I don't have them to hand here, but it's going to get more, and so for people like me, it's tougher to do transformation and change because people are feeling, this kind of overwhelming sense of fatigue that's in there as well. What needs to happen, and what I'd try to do in coming back to the stakeholders, is working with people, understanding their issues, getting some quick wins under the belt. So I've got some currency to spend with them, to say, just give me a bit of time. Let's chat about this, other than, I don't want to talk to him. Why should I talk to him? If they know I can help them and address some of their challenges, and and it goes like that as well, really. So communications become easier, but the actual nature of transformation is becoming so much tougher because the world is doing so much more change and transformation.
Guy, really interesting point there about change fatigue. I think that kind of brings me on to want to ask you about an organization's ability to manage change. If you're a leader of an organization, how much change do you think is enough? And how do you know when you're attempting to put too much change consistently onto your people to the point that they will break, leave, or just become tired and put their hands up and say, I can't do this anymore? So as a change professional, have you seen that before? Have you seen when that change is so relentless that an organization is unable to absorb it? What advice again would you give to our listeners around that? What are the signs? What are the warning signs, if you like, to look out for when an organization is going consistently through too much change and is unable to accept that?
I've not seen that enterprise wide about that, too much, and that's a good thing. But I've seen it in areas of organizations over the years where sometimes there's been turnover of leaders in a particular function or new processes or whatever like that as well. And people do get, sometimes nothing changes, and that's probably even worse. Right. You have like nothing changes, and actually we're just going to keep doing what we've always done. This is how we've always done things around here kind of mindset. And I think, you can do staff surveys and you get pulse checks and you can do these, often companies will do kind of listening events and things like that. That's pretty common now. That's really good. And they didn't happen they're kind of fairly recent things, these, over the last 5-10 years, I think, that you'd never really get that much. So I think it's a good thing. I think I think it's about, and it's something I wish I'd said earlier, talking about stakeholders and getting set up, is psychological safety. And this is the secret sauce to be able to get change through and more transformation. That's it. Because if people feel safe, if they've got that ability to be able to raise challenges, raise issues, solutions, radical ideas to change the game without the fear of getting fired, I think that's a really good thing, right? So, and without people getting that kind of burnout kind of feeling as well. So I think having psychological safety in that, and it's easier said than done. You can't just, leaders in a business can't just wave a magic wand and say, we've got psychological safety here. It's just one of those things where you need to, instill it in the culture. This is how things are, in here as well. And it's easier said than done.
It is easier said than done, Guy, but I'm going to push you now on this one. So how do you achieve that environment, that culture in an organization where people feel safe and empowered to take risks? They feel sponsored by the very top to transform the organization, to be radical, to potentially make mistakes with a safety net, and without them being worried that it's going to cost them their job. So again, for our listeners, what sort of advice and guidance, what practical tips might you offer to create that psychological safety net for the organization so that it's embedded in the culture, so it's absolutely fine for people to try radical change?
Yeah. I'm a magpie, okay, and I will steal, borrow, take ideas wherever I can. And I work with some very smart cookies over the years, right? And I'll share some ideas that I've learned from them and I've seen over the years. And there are some things like having pilots, trying things out. There is this term fast fail, which I love, because this term is, we're going to try something. It doesn't work. That's fine. We're going to kill it if it doesn't work. So to be able to encourage pilots, skunk works, these are the old terms, right, to this about trying something out. Here's a bit of money. Go and try it out. Go and try this out with some customers. I think is great. And without fear that if it doesn't work, somebody's neck is on the line, that you learn. And you can bring that thinking in, because then that is very interesting then, because that will encourage people to think radically. Oh, I just learned that those guys did that over there. I'm going to do that over here. I think there's a flip side to that. And, over the years, and I've run these idea schemes, and I absolutely abhor these. They become, this is the flip side to having a skunk works or anything like that as well, because you end up with getting dozens and dozens of ideas, and unless you have ultimate resources to do something, you just end up with a nice lovely Excel of like 300 ideas, and potentially nobody can do it. So I wouldn't do those kind of things, but I would have some ideas. I think looking and seeking for things where things have gone wrong, and then for people to have a lessons learned review that is transparent and open, and people see that, it shows great psychological safety, and that people then can say, great, okay, didn't go right. I remember one of my first bosses was from one of the big companies like Unilever, Procter & Gamble, and they had great psychological safety in those organizations from the stories I heard from them, because they would say, look, you can make a mistake, just don't make the same mistake twice, learn from it as well. And I like that, because companies aren't charities. There aren't infinite resources or funds to be able to do things, but you need to learn, and if you keep screwing up, keep making the same mistake, you probably shouldn't be in that particular business. I think it needs to be top down. Things need to be celebrated. I think where people take calculated risks, it's a good thing, and this is, again, coming back to radical transformation. What separates the Ubers, the SpaceXs, and this isn't all about Mr. Musk here, but what is it that separates these organizations? And they're trying new things. They're giving it a go. But people just feel they need to know, and this is the ultimate thing, Mike, that you've got their back. And it's a bit like dominoes. It's not just stakeholders. It's not just transformation directors. It's just not just CEOs or CFOs or whoever. It's everybody. And it needs to be in the organization, but it's easier said than done.
There's some real gold there, Guy. And as you say, people have got to know that the business, particularly the top level of business, has got their back. Yeah. And I'm sure, some of those businesses you've referenced, that is the case, or else people wouldn't do that. Yeah. And I can imagine that those wash-ups, that humility that comes from them is absolutely critical, isn't it? Mm. People see that, they feel it, and it gives them permission to try again, to fail again fast, but get it right next time.
Yeah, and if I may, one other thing, you're dead right. The best organizations that I work with the psychological safety, there's growth mindset thinking in the business. There is the art of the possible. So it's rather than there's a problem here, crap, what are we going to do about it? There's a problem here, there's an opportunity. What can we do about it? Whether that's something that's arising in a team or a project team or something like that to a strategy. I think having that growth mindset thinking and having coaching, investing in people's time in what is growth mindset, is super important for transformation as well, to get people feeling, and when they're out for their morning run or walk, that they're doing some, perambulating about it, about some of the ideas there as well, that it's not just happening, when you turn up to work.
100%, Guy. Which leads me to my next question, Guy. What are the 3 non-negotiables for you in transformation? The things you really have to get right if you're going to drive transformation, drive change successfully in your organization. What are they? Guy's 3 tips.
Cake. No. Well, cake would be nice. I think I touched on the target operating model at the start. I think without a clear model, picture, whatever, that's jumping from today to tomorrow with the bridge, that people understand that a program strategy can be wrapped around, is key. If I don't see that in a transformation program, if there is concern about wanting to do that, I'll run a mile. Because why wouldn't you? It's key. Because people working on a transformation program, the stakeholders, they're busy people. It's another plate that goes on their desk of other things as well. I've been stakeholder on a number of transformation programs myself, and I'm thinking, where's the model? And I think this happens. Most of the time there is one. But people need to see it. Because then you can say, aha, this is where this project, these programs, whatever, these work streams or whatever, however it manifests in the organization works. I know the part I'm playing for the model and the kind of patchwork quilt of it all as well. Doesn't need to be a lot. Just needs to be something to say, this is the world about what it looks like. I think you mentioned change before, and that's just triggered something for me. I mean, you've got transformation and change, and it's a bit like a Venn diagram in my head. And often people say transformation change, but it's very different. The transformation is the strategic, this is the vision, this is the North Star, this is the flag at the top of the mountain, this is how we're going to get there, here's the target model. But with the change, how do we do that? How do we take people on the journey? How are we going to change some of our processes, systems, whatever as well? And I think I look for, methods, tools, for people to help the change. I mean, I always give people a copy of Who've Moved My Cheese, right? Because it's such a great book, but when it comes to change, you just need to help people on that journey to understand their change journey and their colleagues' journey as well, right? So that's the second one. It is about, appreciating the change management. Things don't just happen overnight. Things don't magically transform. you leave Friday and you come in Monday. There's a lot of work that needs to happen, and the change part is key. So it's target model, change. And the third one, Mike, is engagement. And this is the key one. This is where, I'm surprised there aren't any books in transformation engagement, about engaging hearts and minds on a transformation journey, taking people, giving them the psychological safety, the growth mindset, the communication, the, having their backs, helping them understand the target model, the communication between different parts of the business, the up and down engagement, the external engagement with the stakeholders and groups outside as well is key. Often, because of, there's a lack of time, everyone's busy, it's just missed, or it's just like it left, don't worry about it, but it's key. And, this is where I kind of bang the drum in my silly cake videos and posts and things like that as well, and try and shoehorn these analogies in, because if you're not engaging people, if you're not helping them understand what's going on and why, you're not going to get there. There's this 70% of transformation programs infamously fail. So McKinsey say, and let's just say that that's true, right? And you read that article, and I've read it many times over the years, right? And, they give reasons, and there's always something, right? But I think if people aren't invested, truly invested, and they are not engaged in that journey, you're going to be part of that 70%. So they need to be. They need to see the picture. They need to have the target model. They need to know how it's going to change and the strategy to do that. And then just get out of their way and let them get on with it. And I think that's where they're the three things.
That last bit of advice, I think just getting out their way once they understand what's in it for them, why they're doing it, what the vision is absolutely critical. Thanks, Guy. Great advice. I've got one more question for you. And in closing, I just want to know, what other advice would you like to leave our listeners with?
I think this is a terrific career, transformation, change management. And we have a responsibility for, as leaders in this industry, if there is an industry in transformation change management, and I believe there is huge globally, to consider the next generation of people who are going to be driving this and driving projects and programs. And I think my request to you and our listeners today is just think about and consider looking for opportunities for people to learn on transformation programs, because one day they are going to be driving transformation programs, and it's going to help companies get better, economies get better, countries get better by doing that as well. I wish I'd had people at the beginning of my career, and I did occasionally, but it wasn't enough, just to see and learn what was going on. And I think it's key that people get to see how a target model is created, how a stakeholder plan is created, how to do a board update, how to pitch something to a CEO. I mean, these are things that you don't learn. It just happens. And I say, I'm a magpie, so over the years I've learned it. I've seen it. And that's probably how most people will. But there is an opportunity as we do these programs and the people are around. There are more junior people who will be itching for that, and for involvement, and let them shine. And I think we have an opportunity as leaders to help people do that within limits, but for people to get that opportunity. So that would be the final thing to think about the next generation.
Guy, thank you. It's been wonderful having you on the show today. Your passion really comes through. Can't wait to keep our conversations going. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike.